Welcome to SmokeHouseStudios.net. The in-studio broadcast feed is now live.
Warning. This show is about the return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you are easily offended by the truth, then you need to keep listening.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
SmokeHouseStudios.net. The Front Porch Show. A unique blend of current events and what they might mean. Humbly seen through the eyes of God's Word, the Bible, in an old-school front porch discussion with occasional guests, your input, and a guiding hand through Christ. Broadcasting from atop the front porch, it's SmokeHouseStudios.net's The Front Porch Show. Now, carefully blending more smoke goodness in each and every soundbite, your host, Smokehouse.
If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and will heal their land.
Well, hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, friends, wherever you may be across the globe and across the United States. Old Smokehouse with you here. SmokeHouseStudios.net Front Porch Show. I do apologize. I did not mute the phone lines prior to going live, and so I had to do it while the show was coming in, so had to mute all our callers. Friends, welcome aboard. Thank you again for tuning in. I know a lot of you, just like myself and others, we were thoroughly distraught yesterday after hearing the news that Andrew McCabe, yes, the lying, leaking FBI agent, just like Comey, the Department of Justice, our DOJ, under the authority of Attorney General Barr, mind you. The DOJ, although it was proven that he had lied and coerced, and the DOJ decided, you know what, we're not going to be bringing any criminal charges against Andrew McCabe. And then he goes out to all of the left-winging news media platforms and says, like, see, I told you so. So now we have Comey, and now we have Andrew McCabe that have been found not guilty by the Department of Justice. Now, Attorney General Barr is not the one bringing the criminal indictments. I'm going to get into all of this. I'm going to get into the IG report, the Horowitz report that the DOJ deemed him as being free and clear of all of his charges, because this goes into the Durham report we'll cover later. But yesterday, my head exploded off of my shoulders, and I was fit to be tied. And I consulted a lot of my friends about this issue, and, we were reminded that this is not over, which leads me to open with, we need to be a strong soldier. There's more to this definition than just being strong. 2 Timothy 2:3 says that, thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Christ. Now, we as Christians, we sometimes we're compared to either a soldier or an athlete, but both symbols suggest vigor and strength. And Paul warned us that we must wrestle, which means to run the straight race, and put on the whole armor of God, and fight the good fight of faith, and be steadfast. We need to endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Now, let me give you a few scenarios here. Sometimes nothing is harder in life than just to endure, which is what we have to do now, is endure this race, because it is not over yet. And there are two types of strength here. There is the strength of the wind that sways the oak And then there is the strength of the oak that withstands the power of the wind. There is strength of the locomotive that pulls the heavy train across the bridge. And then there is the strength of the bridge that holds up the weight of the train. One is active strength and the other is passive strength. One is the power to keep going and the other is the power to keep still. What has God told us? Be still and know that I am God. This is in God's hands. It's obvious that it is God directed. So, in this analogy, yes, we need to have the power of the locomotive, but now, more than ever, we need to have the power of the bridge to be still. We have to have that power. We have to have it. Again, one is active strength and the other is passive strength. One is the power to keep going and the other is the power to keep still. One, the strength by which we overcome. The other is the strength by which we endure. We have got to have both to be an appropriate soldier. Sometimes we say to others that they can take it. The ability to take it, to endure, must be the essential part of our equipment these days, friends. To be able to take bad news with endurance. We have got to have it. Without losing our morale, and to make sacrifices without self-pity is essential. And it appears that this struggle in which we are involved in today is going to be quite largely an endurance test. And it's going to be decided not only by the strength of our material equipment, but also by the adequacy of the armor which fortifies our spirit. It's one thing to, again, be the locomotive, to be the wind. You know, when we have Christ in us, and I mean, we're just full bore, both barrels, blasting away. But when it comes time to be that bridge that supports the locomotive or the oak that withstands the wind, that's the hard part. And tonight, I want to address that, and this is why I titled the program, The Courthouse Scene. I was going to go back into Isaiah 5 and talk about all the woes. Woe to those that call good evil, evil good, that trade darkness for light, light for darkness. You know, those that try to build house upon house and move people into the cities while they themselves steal our land and live out into the country. But that's repetitive, that's cliche. And then I remembered Micah, the short book in the Bible that speaks volumes, that gets overlooked at times. And tonight we're going to go into Micah chapter 3. So why Micah? And why is the title of tonight's show The Courthouse Scene? Well, it's because the plight of Israel and Judah in the 8th and 7th century BC, it is exactly like the world that we are living in today. Because Micah prophesied against the proud and the arrogant leaders of Israel between like 750 BC to 680-something BC. But his prophecy, it reveals this deep sensitivity to the social injustice, to the religious hypocrisy, and the financial corruption of that day going on in Israel. He didn't apologize for it. He didn't repent for it. Micah predicted the fall of Israel's capital in Samaria and the desolation of Judah. So this book, the whole book of Micah, actually, it contains these short prophetic messages that can be organized in a pattern of 3 cycles of judgment and of deliverance. Judgment and deliverance. The power of the wind, and then the power of the oak. So we're going to take a look at chapter 3, which is exactly what we're dealing with today. And Micah pulled the veil off of the corruption, the arrogance and the complacency of their secular and religious leaders. Yes, what we're dealing with right now has everything to do not only with the corrupt in our government, but our religious leaders. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to break Micah into 3 sections, and we're going to present to you a court scene. Number 1, we're going to give you the charges. Number 2, we're going to show you the witness. And then number 3, we're going to cover the sentence, or the sentences, if you would. So the charge, again, the charge is against the civil rulers and the religious leaders. So in today's time, it's against the corrupt elite, and it's also against the leaders of our American church today. And let me preface this by saying it also has to do with over in the UK, Ireland, South Africa, wherever you are, okay? I use America a lot as an example, but this is globally, okay? So I want to apologize for leaving my brothers and sisters out overseas. And so we're going to be looking at the civil rulers and the religious leaders. So the civil rulers, why were they judged? They were judged for their reward. If we look at Micah 3, 1-4, it says, "Then I said, listen, you leaders of Jacob, you rulers of the house of Israel." So, simply put, your nation and your nation's capital, whatever that may be. In this case, it's America. Listen, you leaders of Washington, you rulers of America. Should you not know justice? Who you hate good and love evil, who tear the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones, who eat my people's flesh, strip off their skin and break their bones into pieces, who chop them up like meat for the pan, like flesh for the pot. So here, Micah described in graphic detail, mind you, the effect of corrupt judges who would rule in favor of those able to pay the biggest bribe. We just saw this with the DOJ, Andy McCabe, and you name it. Okay? He described it as a form of cannibalism. I mean, that's how deep he went in with this analogy. They eat my people's flesh. Isn't that what we do when we buy unfairly traded products from a developing world? Or what about when our companies pay money into these slush funds to win a contract or to protect our financial loans to these developing countries? We insist on a repayment scheme and monetary reforms that are not in the best interest of us, the people. So the civil leaders, they're condemned for exploiting the people. The civil rulers are judged for their reward. This is exactly what we're dealing with now. What's Michael Bloomberg doing to all these Democrat states, paying all this money out to get the Democrat states to start passing these anti-constitutional laws? There is a judgment coming for that, people. Now, what about the religious leaders? They're being judged because they teach for hire. This was going on in Israel. This is what the Lord says in Micah 3, 5-7. "As for the prophets who lead my people astray, if you feed them, they proclaim peace. If you do not, they prepare to wage war against you. Therefore, night will come over you with visions and darkness with divination. They will all cover their faces because there is no answer from God." So, if the decisions of our judges could be bought, which they are, that's why Trump is removing all of these judges and putting in honest constitutional judges, but we still have bad apples in the barrel. So if these judges can be bought, then the message here that Micah, well, the prophets, if you would, depend on their allowance, the preachers. So if judges can be bought by corrupt government, so can our spiritual leaders, the 501c3. You know, you can do a whole show on that, but keep them happy. You've got to keep the congregation happy. And these preachers, these spiritual leaders, are going to pronounce God's peace, annoy them, and they would bring down God's judgment. So the clergy here, they exploit people by promising God's blessings as long as you feed them. And that was precisely what sparked the Protestant Reformation. Back in the day, Martin Luther, the church sold indulgences. So they told them, give to us, you're going to be blessed. What's his face, man? I can't think. Well, his name slips my mind. Joel Osteen, what's he doing, So the church exploited the people by guilt and fear, exactly what they're doing today. They raised funds by selling indulgent promises, years of purgatory if they didn't give the money to the leaders. So if we look at today, the temptation is a little bit more subtle to preach what people want to hear so that they will be generous and you will be popular. Tell the people what they want to hear, even though they're sitting in the church, they're looking out the windows and peering through the pane and perusing all they see on their news outlets and Antifa burning cities down. Everything is okay. We're not in the last days. Christ loves you. Tell them what they want to hear. So this chapter is summed up in verse 10 and 11. Her leaders judge for a bribe, her priests teach for a price, and her prophets tell fortunes for money. Yet they lean upon the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? No disaster will come upon us. There ain't no sense in talking about the last days, man. That's not the direction we choose to take the congregation. So, people are exploited. God is profaned and judgment is certain. And the civil rulers judge for reward while the religious leaders teach for hire. These are the charges. Those were the charges back in the days of Micah, and just a simple overlook at what was going on in Israel then is exactly what's happening today. These are the charges. So who are the witnesses? Micah 3:8 tells us, but as for me, I am filled with power, the Spirit of the Lord, and with justice and might to declare to Jacob his transgressions, to Israel his sin. So Micah said, look, as for me, which goes for you and I who are listening to this program, as for us today, we can say this very verse. As for us, we are filled with the power, with the Spirit of the Lord, and with justice and might to declare to America, to declare to Europe, to declare to the leaders of the UK their transgressions and their sins. This is why we have got to be strength in motion and strength to sit still. Because right now, we have to endure and be still. So the witness is us here, people. Judgment is coming for the church and for these wicked spiritual leaders, and we are the witness. We should pray for our leaders, though. We should. I know it's hard. But think about this. Micah may have been a minority back in his day. He may have been unpopular. But what he did was he spoke the truth, and God was in him. He was God's witness to that generation. We are God's witness to this generation. The DOJ has turned their back on the American people. That's okay. Endure. Be the strength of the wind. Be the strength of the oak. Be the strength of the bridge, and endure and continue doing what you're doing. Micah wasn't afraid. Micah compared these people to cannibals, man, eating of flesh. That's how bold and strong Micah was. Don't let this get you down, friends. Continue doing what you're commanded to do. He was God's witness to his generation just like we are. And I believe the role of the church in relation to the government, to business and civil leaders is threefold. So, we should pray for our leaders. Don't get off of the program. Let me finish what I'm saying here. 1 Timothy 2:1-2 says, I urge then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for everyone, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in godliness and holiness. We should obey our leaders. Stick with me. Don't get mad and hang up. Do you refuse to speak to me? Excuse me. Let everyone be subject to the government authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Now, I know, when our leaders are putting out, I won't say leaders, but our representatives, well, if we pattern them, they are over. We put them in power to reign, okay? So, but it's still we the people. We're the boss. They just represent us. And we have to obey the laws of the land. Okay? I'm going to clarify that in a moment. But God said in Romans that he has established the government to execute his wrath not on those who do good, but upon the evil doers. That is the purpose of the government. Not for us who do good. He established government to bring his wrath upon those who do evil. But what has happened today, everything's been flipped upside down. Now the evil are getting the free pass, and the government is being used as a weapon to come after the ones who do good. Roger Stone versus Adam McCabe. Okay? General Flynn versus James Comey. You see what I'm saying here. So why should our leaders be accountable? John chapter 19 tells us that, do you refuse to speak to me, Pilate said? Do you realize I have power either to free you or crucify you? And Jesus answered, you would have no power over me if it weren't not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. So Jesus held Herod accountable for his actions. In response is how the apostles prayed. So Herod and Pilate, they met together with the Gentiles and the other people of Israel in the city to conspire against the holy servant Jesus, whom you anointed. They did what your power and will had decided beforehand should happen. Now, Lord, consider their threats and enable your servants to speak your words with great boldness. So, when confronted with this choice, Peter insists we must obey God rather than human beings. This is it. Right now, that good has become evil, evil has become good. Our representatives have now weaponized the government against us and is using the government opposite of what God has established. Our duty is to follow the laws of God now. And you can go back to the Church of England. It's been described as the conservative party at prayer. And sometimes these nonconformist churches have associated more with the Labor Party on the picket line. And that is why our role in Micah, the challenge is so crucial. Not to just pray for justice, but do justice, to hold our leaders, our representatives accountable to the promise that they've made to relieve poverty, uphold trade, justice, encourage sustainable development. The charges, the witness, and now comes the sentencing. Micah 3:12. Therefore, because of you, Zion will be plowed like a field. Jerusalem will become a heap of rubble, and the temple heal a mound overgrown with thickets. So, we see here that corruption, exploitation, complacency, apostasy, inevitably led to divine judgment. Then, and it's going to happen now. So, while Christians turn this blind eye to the denial of human rights and proclaim this present state that we're in, or the state of Israel is enjoying their divine blessing, we're not so sure, because if this promise applies today, so do the warnings. So if we take Micah and other prophets seriously that present Israel as this liable to endure another exile rather than an ingathering, then that's why we must pray for her conversion, for our conversion. Back in Micah's day, the false prophets disconnected divine blessing and protection from holiness, obedience, and justice. And we're doing the same. Our churches aren't teaching us Deuteronomy 28, everything your hand touches. If you obey my commandments will be blessed, but if you don't obey my commandments, everything your hands touch will be cursed. Church is not telling us that today. Hell, you could have a shooting at a church, a man come in with a gun at a church across the street and mow down 50 people and kill them on a Saturday during a wedding, and then the very next day, Sunday, the church across the street won't even bring it up. I mean, they may say a quick prayer, oh, be with those who've lost loved ones, and amen. And then you'll get the preacher standing up there and preaching a story about David and Goliath, some new interpretation, new variant of that story. They're not going to stand up there and tell you to get your life right, because judgment comes first to the house of God. Look what happened across the street. They're not doing that. And we're going to explore Micah further later on at the end of the show. And God is not willing that any of us perish. He wants all people to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. And against the backdrop of these ungodly rulers and these false shepherds, God promises in chapter 5, verse 2, a divine ruler. He will be born in Bethlehem, and he will shepherd God's people, and he will know his name, and the hope of Israel, and indeed the whole world, would rest on the shoulders of the Prince of Peace, who's going to execute perfect justice. Micah just introduced us to God's justice. So the charges and the witness and now the sentencing is the news this week. If we take a look at everything as a whole, we're going to understand exactly what this means. If it has been done, it will be done again. If it has happened, it will happen again. There's nothing new under the sun. God is not going to let this go unpunished. Now, here is the important part. We know the days we're living in. And we understand that judgment is coming. Tribulations are coming. We're not going to be like Israel, be destroyed, have another 700 years to recoup. I believe we're in the last days. So this is not going to be a revolution that we're going to regain our sovereignty, regain our land, and go back to business as usual for another 1,000 years. I believe this is it. When this unravels, we're in it. Tribulations are here. Christ's return is imminent. But there is still a judgment coming of the corrupt. And it could be us. We could be part of the mix if we don't repent. So there's your courthouse case right now. I have given you the charges of both the spiritual leaders and the government leaders. I've shown you who the witnesses are to this. And now I have given you the sentence that's coming. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on the radio. So when we get through with the show tonight at the end, I will then offer my closing statements of biblical justice is relational. Biblical justice is liberating. Biblical justice is restorative. And then we will conclude with what Micah has told us. So friends, which one are you going to be? Are you going to be the soldier that can only endure one of the two? Or are you going to be the soldier and put on the full armor of Christ and endure both? The wind, be the wind, but also learn to be the oak that withstands the wind. Be the locomotive, and then be the bridge that withstands the weight of the locomotive. It's here. All right. When we get back, we're going to dive into a summary that Sean Hannity gave us of things to come after this Andy McCabe fiasco that has turned the nation upside down. People going nuts, including myself. And we're going to look at all this as a whole, everything else that's going on. And we're going to relate it back to our courtroom discussion at the beginning of the program. And the evidence that Micah has laid out that we're seeing happen exactly the same today. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back after this.
Smokehouse.
To talk to Smokehouse, dial 712-770-3857. That number once again is 712-770-3857. Then dial 252-380, followed by the pound sign. Call in to join the show.
SmokehouseStudios.net. God is among us. The door to the ark is slamming shut.
They want to paint Trump supporters as neo-Nazis and white supremacists.
As though it's nothing but white rednecks and hillbillies out here who care for the Second Amendment. When actually, black Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, Americans in general care about the Second Amendment.
These white politicians.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47.
In leftist-run cities want to take away black women's rights to protect ourselves. I just think it's ridiculous.
That's what they do. It's like a mascot. They put you in front, and then they run their agenda in the back.
When you look at the history of gun control, it was used to take away guns from minorities and the black men and women who just wanted to protect their family. If anything, you would want black men and women to be able to protect their families from anybody trying to break in.
It all started with them taking away your guns. You can't protect yourself. You're gonna, okay, it's fine for the police to protect you, but if they can't get to you fast enough.
A bunch of gang members storming into a jewelry store. Shots are fired right there. The woman behind the counter opened fire. Whew, are they running fast?
Listen, if they steamroll the Second Amendment, they'll steamroll everything else.
Simply, we just want to hold on to our rights to protect ourselves. We're definitely here to show that there's unity because the media will play and act like we don't deal with each other very well. We won't come together, but you can look around. I've seen people from all walks of life today.
I'm here because I love this country, and if the Democrats are able to do away with the Constitution, a temporary ban on the Constitution, come on, never heard of.
Yeah.
Everyone should be terrified of that.
You need to be prepared to protect what's yours at all times.
United we stand, right? Right. White, black, Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, whatever. United we stand.
Are you willing to lay down your life to protect the Second Amendment and your right to carry?
Definitely. Why wouldn't I be? I mean, that'd be the perfect thing to give my life up for. It's something my family would be honored about.
I'd love to die for my freedom.
Would you be willing to lay down your life to protect the Second Amendment and your right to carry?
Absolutely. That's why I'm out here.
Have you ever thought about that along with gun control? What the Democrats are doing? Disarming not only women, but minority women. when they're up there preaching and professing how they're all for the minority and they're all for women's rights, and the first thing they want to do is take it away. Why are they so hell-bent now on taking away our firearms at a degree of which we've never seen before? I know they've been wanting to take them away for eons, but now this immediate, abrupt, just unconstitutional, crazed purge to openly do it right before an election of all times. Think about that, man. I mean, we are days away from another presidential election, and the Democrats are telling you right now, we're going to take away your money, we're going to take away your guns, and you're just going to have to deal with it. You don't believe me? Then look at all the states we're doing it in now. Now, come vote for me. So, we know that Michael Bloomberg is not really wanting to run for president. He's only doing it for show because his money is the one that's funding all of this anti-constitutional junk along with George Soros and the rest of them. And he's kind of out there running the race just so that he can do what he's doing because he'll have a little bit more leg room to do it if he's an actual candidate running. Well, now it's surfaced that he's considering pulling Hillary in as his running mate. Now, they've already screwed Bernie over, as they did in the last election, and now they've done it again, and Bernie's letting them do it, which boggles my mind. And for whatever reason they want to vote for Bernie, I don't get. But anyway, apparently Bernie is the candidate that people are reaching out to on the Democrat side. But they want to burn Bernie, man. They don't want Bernie in office, which I don't understand. To me, it doesn't matter who they have in office because they're going to control whoever. So they're putting old Buttigieg ahead of Bernie. And I can tell you why they're doing that. It's the moral breakdown and the continuing teardown of the family. Yes, Bernie in there can usher in socialism just like the rest of them can. But see, with Buttigieg in there, he can bring the homosexual realm into the White House, further destroy the family, further create crimes if you speak out against homosexuality. He can by having him as the president, they can further tear down the family, is what I'm saying. So Bloomberg hops up, looks like he's going to have Hillary as his running mate, and if this is the case, we know what's going to happen. They're going to backdoor Hillary in to be president. Michael Bloomberg's going to run, and if he wins, which he won't win, but if he did win, then Hillary would be the vice president, and then it may go a week, 2 weeks, and then Michael Bloomberg will come out and say, man, I really didn't realize it was going to be all this. He said, I'm going to go ahead and step down, and then boom, Hillary's president. Or Hillary will just suicide him. Whichever way they decide to do it, they don't care. They just want her in power. So, I'm just curious here. What is that all about? Because they know Trump's going to win, and they know Trump's going to win huge. He's going to win by a landslide, and they have no way to stop it. None. I mean, they've got even Democrats now jumping ship since Nancy Pelosi tore up Trump's speech. Now you have the moderate fence-riding Democrats going to vote for Trump, along with the walk-away movement going to be voting for Trump. It's going to be a landslide. So now you've got these Democrat states stating that they're going to have their electorals of the Electoral College for that state vote, not the will of the people, but whatever the popular vote is going to be. Well, that's good because at least in this election, the popular vote's going to be Trump. However you want to look at it, you know. So they're in a pickle. The Democrats are seriously in a pickle. They don't have a candidate. They can't even rig their own elections. Look at the Iowa caucus. Now look at the New Hampshire caucus. They're in a pickle. They have nowhere to turn. They're not going to win. And so, I think there's going to be something serious coming down the pike to either divert attention or whatnot. So, anyway, again, the title of the show is Courthouse Scene. Andrew McCabe, found innocent by the DOJ, walks free, runs around on his CNN. Look at me. This is so tragic what has happened to my family. Who cares what they did to Roger Stone's family or General Flynn's family, okay? But Hannity had something very interesting to say. Think about our open, and I want you to listen to what Hannity opened with last night.
Bill Barr is now focused on something much bigger, much deeper, that will have far-ranging ramifications, serious ramifications for that 1% that abuse power, that 1% involved in the corruption, those deep state bureaucrats who abuse their power. Because as we speak, the Durham Barr criminal probe is underway. I've been told by my sources that, in fact, it has gone deep, it has gone wide, it has gone far, and the evidence they are accumulating is overwhelming and incontrovertible. That's what my sources are telling me tonight. On this program, we refer to all of this as the investigation into the investigators. Now, according to reports, this investigation is scrutinizing the actions now, and we've been wondering when this is going to come. Former CIA Director John Brennan and many other current and former deep state officials responsible for the Russia hoax. Remember, the origins of the Russia hoax. That's the heart of the investigation. And now it has expanded out far and wide. Durham has spent weeks in Italy and Great Britain. That would tell me and indicate to me that the outsourcing of intelligence gathering and spying on Americans to circumvent American law is in play. I am told that this evidence that we already have, that it was about premeditated fraud on a FISA court. Nobody else in the media got that story right. We got it right on this program. The evidence is proven. It's a slam dunk case. We already have that. And Barr has already confirmed, you got to pay attention, that the FISA applications were fraudulent. Barr has already confirmed that a candidate, Donald Trump, his transition team, and deep into the presidency of Donald Trump, spying happened. Yes, he used the word spying. Okay, now we know about the warnings, multiple warnings that were given to those when they filed the FISA applications. Don't trust Steele, he has an agenda. Hillary paid for it and it's not verified. Multiple warnings. That means premeditated fraud on the court. That means a huge day of reckoning to me seems to be on the horizon. I may be wrong. I don't think so. It also would mean potential charges for so many who recklessly abuse the FISA court or any of this nation's powerful tools of intelligence. We entrust you with those tools. You don't get to turn them on the American people because you have a political agenda. And a new development. That's not all. Now, we learned today that Barr ordered outside prosecutors to review the case of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Thank God. You might remember James Comey bragging on camera about, setting Flynn up. And, I sent my guys in there. I'd never do that in the Trump or Bush administrations or ever get away with it. Decorated military hero, 33 years. They forced him to plead guilty to one charge, lying to investigators. But the investigators actually didn't think he was lying. Why did he do it? Because they threatened to go after his family and his kid, and he already had to sell his house because he couldn't pay his lawyers.
And that is what we're battling here. So the real trial or the real investigation is still ongoing. Barr and Durham. Now, one of two things, this is a theory right now. After yesterday, I calmed down, remembered the words of the Lord, the promises of God. He's on the throne. We've been going like a freight train. Now we need to be the bridge. We need to have the strength of the bridge. Okay, so what's Trump's history? If somebody is not doing what Trump wants, if Trump tells somebody to do something and they're not doing it, he gets rid of them. He fires them. Well, he's out there hammering on Barr now in his Twitter and out on the camera, just like he did Sessions. But he's still keeping Barr as the Attorney General. So think about this. One of two things. Here's a theory here. We know that Barr is associated with Ruby Ridge. That Barr is the one that covered up for that FBI agent that shot that fellow's family, wife and kid, and a dog, I believe. So Barr's the one that covered up for that back during Ruby Ridge, covered up for that FBI. So is Barr still deep state? We know that he's buddies with Mueller and has been for years, that their wives hang out and go to church together. So is Barr deep state, and all Barr is doing is covering up for the deep state, being the attorney general, and allowing these decisions to come out of the DOJ? Or is Barr truly working for justice, and the things the DOJ had Comey and McCabe on is minor things like a parking ticket when they have vehicular manslaughter coming with Durham and Barr? So let's not arrest them on the parking ticket. Let's wait till the big dog comes in. So either Trump is doing this so that when Durham does bring the criminal indictments, it'll show that Barr wasn't going after the corrupt like he's supposed to, and that's going to throw Barr in the mix to fall under judgment and scrutiny and arrest. Or is Barr working with Trump, and they are waiting for the big one to drop so that they can bring down the whole entire CIA agency, the Brennans and the Clappers and all that, and clear out a lot of people in the Department of Justice? Because think about this. How would you go about cleaning this out? So if Durham comes and brings all of these criminal indictments, and all these people, yes, under the criminal indictment are going to be arrested, then why did the ones in the DOJ find them innocent? What's going to be their punishment? So you see which way this could go either way. And right now, we don't know. Right now, it looks and appears as though we're losing this battle. But friends, there is judgment coming. There is a sword coming. We are coming upon the last days. We're going to get into what's going on around the world as far as the earth shakes and meteors and everything else, but we're here. And God's word will not return void. It's true. Judgment's coming. In some facet, it's coming. We just have to be that bridge and withhold the weight. Okay, here's the latest Hannity shared real quick about General Flynn.
That the Durham Barr probe will deliver a devastating blow to the deep state, which has to happen, or we might as well take our Constitution and shred it, because equal justice under the law and application of our laws will be dead. But these are clear messages now being sent. When Barr stepped in and stopped the prosecutorial abuse on Roger Stone, that was huge. That case needs to be vacated completely, as we now know the jury foreperson had a political agenda. Oh, a Democrat. An activist Democrat that had actually even talked about the case. And to date, my sources have been right the entire time. So tonight, I can report this. I am cautiously optimistic that real justice will be done. And it seems like the decks are being cleared. Looks like a 5-alarm fire happening at the Justice Department. And we should know in short order, well, short order meaning a few months, what will happen, how this will fall out. To his credit, the president, as the Attorney General said yesterday, has given the Attorney General, the DOJ Inspector General, the space to conduct what is important independent investigations.
So Trump's giving them the leg room to do what they need to do. And we know that justice is in the eyes of Jesus. And biblical justice is relational. If we look, justice in the Bible is preemptively a relational bound between a holy God and his people, and with one another in a community of faith. Biblical justice is then, first and foremost, relational. It's founded on God's gracious initiative. Christians believe that divine justice was fully personified in the person of Jesus Christ. The Bible explains that Jesus died in our place to take upon himself the judgment we deserve, so that we can be justified and made right with God. So this is the basis for our relationship with God and one another. That was in Romans 3:22 through 26. So, in this society that prizes personal freedom and affluence, both the rugged and individualism of the free enterprise capitalist and self-centered individualism of the me generation, biblical justice holds us accountable to God. And it calls us back to a right relationship with Him and strengthens community first and foremost. Then, biblical justice is relational. This judgment is in the eye of Christ. We've got people involved in this, sacrificing children, drinking their blood, selling their organs. Do you really think God's going to let these people walk? Now, scratch and get away from the Cyrus analogy here that we have been following with Trump. It appears if Trump is not a Cyrus, he is anointed in some facet by God. There's a purpose. There's a purpose that God is with Trump. And things are happening here. And we have to put our faith in God. You know, I think this is where we have been stumbling as Christians and as citizens. We've been stumbling on this. Proverbs tells us, do not rely upon our own understanding, but trust in the Lord. Don't look to man, look to God. I think what our problem is we have, and I don't want to say forgotten God, because I don't think we have. I just think that we're putting aside the fact God's in charge, and when we watch these things happen, we expect them to go the way we think they should. I mean, personally, I see an election coming up in just a mere months, and if something ain't done, it doesn't appear really Trump's going after these illegal elections, election fraud. I mean, they're passing these red flag laws, and these, matter of fact, Arizona, just this week, Arizona's putting in a gun ban. The only thing you're going to be allowed to have in Arizona now is a little six-shooter and a single-shot black powder musket. We saw in the last gubernatorial elections, Democrats still doing their deal on election fraud and winning. And it just seems right now that wheels are spinning and we ain't going anywhere. So we've been looking at Barr, we've been looking at Durham, we've been looking at Trump. Have we looked at God? God's intention is that people be reconciled to Himself and to one another in community. As we've seen, it's specifically those who are vulnerable, the poor, the weak, the widow, and the orphan, and the stranger who are the focus of God's compassion and protection, so that they can survive and remain in the community. Okay, so there was one occasion where Jesus was having a meal in a home with a Pharisee, and this prostitute enters and anoints his feet with perfume, wets them with her tears, and dries them with her hair, and the Pharisees applauded that Jesus allowed this woman to touch him, and Jesus responds with a story about two men who each owned money. One owed a little and the other owed a great deal. The money lender canceled the debts of both. And Jesus asked, which loved the money lender the most? Which one loved the money lender the most? And the Pharisees replied, well, I suppose the one that had the bigger debt canceled. And Jesus told them the principle. Jesus then applies the principle, and he rebukes the Pharisees and forgives the woman. And Jesus says to the woman, your faith has saved you, go in peace. God is just. We deserve condemnation, but because Jesus died in our place, God can justly forgive and restore us, and that's why we must seek justice and restoration for others. So which one was the one who was the happiest about having the debt forgiven. The one with the most money, the one with the most to lose. That was the one that was happy about what Jesus did. So which one are we? Are we the one that has the debt that's huge or the small debt? What are we going to do when Christ intervenes here? I mean, I kind of got off on the wrong foot. Not the wrong foot, but the wrong path with this. But my point is that our faith is what saves us. Not faith in man, not faith in government, not faith in Barr or Durham. Faith in God. God's got this. And whatever God has established, we are his soldiers. Our wants are null and void. But God's need from us is what's important. And at times, we have to be strong like the wind. And then at times, we have to have the strength of the oak to withstand the wind. And I believe right now, we have to be the oak. But as powerful and mighty as we have been pushing forward, exposing the wicked, exposing the lies, being the voice of truth, as powerful as we have been like that locomotive, we've now got to be the strength of the bridge. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do. But don't forget what we shared last week. Glenn Beck let it out. This is what John Kerry is on tape admitting to.
They really wanted to fight the Russians. We've seen that passion. But they couldn't let anybody know because the president doesn't want anybody to know. Even though Congress wanted to do it, they couldn't go to Congress because no one could know. The question everyone should be asking right now is how far up the chain of command did this go? Because there is no way that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden was like, you know what, we're in Air Force 2. Let's do a proxy war. This had to be approved from the highest echelons of the administration. And you want proof?
I will tell you, because as Secretary of State, I was deeply involved in this. All of us in the administration were trying to get rid of that prosecutor. From Obama to the Secretary of State to the Vice President, all of us were working on that. The ambassador, and we knew if Ukraine was going to survive and win the revolution in the end, the Maidan, they had to get rid of that prosecutor, and they did.
It's admitted. I mean, we thought the Joe Biden tape where Joe Biden said, yeah, I told him we're going to withhold money. We thought that was a good one. We thought that was the money drop. We thought that was a smoking gun. But here we have it. I mean, the proof is there. We may not have people right now that are, really putting it out there, but it's there. It's in the background. And we have to be as mighty as the bridge, strength of the bridge. So what exactly is happening behind the scenes? We're going to cover that after our break. But Barr now starting to sue these sanctuary cities for unconstitutional actions and breaking the laws and giving these illegal aliens a free rein to do whatever they want to do. They're not arresting people. I told you, we played last week that new forward deal that the Democrats are trying to push through the House where we can't even deport people anymore that commit horrible crimes. Friends, I don't think you realize, well, you do because you're the listeners, but if a Democrat ever becomes president, we're done. Done. Put a fork in us, we're done, man. There ain't no other way to put it. Because they're going to unleash everything on us because they have no choice. Their hand has been shown now. So it's time to buckle up. It's time to buckle up. Now, this is going to be our last break, so I can get some things in line here, and then we're going to fire on all cylinders. But I really wanted to emphasize this with justice, biblical justice, how it looks, how it plays out, how the Lord works in it. And when we get back, we're going to talk about how liberating it is when that justice does happen. Because our reward is heaven. This is the only hell we're going to know. But the people right now, the James Comeys, the McCabe's, the Hillary Clintons, this is the only heaven they're going to know. So I hope they enjoy it. Because I believe what's about to happen is going to happen in a way to where no one will be able to get credit from it other than God himself. I truly believe that. All right, so we got a lot to go through when we get back. And I promise this will go a lot faster. I didn't mean to really bog it down with all this, but this is what we need to know, man. This is where we need to be. So we'll be right back right after this.
Smokehouse.
To talk to Smokehouse, dial 712-770-3857. That number once again is 712-770-3857. Then dial 252-380, followed by the pound sign. Call in to join the show.
SmokehouseStudios.net. God is among us. The door to the ark is slamming shut.
People like Bloomberg, AOC, and the left are spending millions of dollars trying to convince the American people that women don't have a say in the Second Amendment movement. That's an absolute lie.
Hi, my name is Christy Titus.
I'm Kelly.
My name is Avery. Hello, everyone. My name is Julia Huang. I'm Anna Paulina Luna.
My name's Kylie.
Hey, everyone. Becky Yackley. I'm a mother, a small business owner, an immigrant.
I am a service member, mom, firearms instructor.
I host Pursue the Wild digital series. I'm a competitive shooter for Ruger.
I have been a competitive shooter since I was 10 years old, and I am now a 5-time Pennsylvania state champion and a 2-time national champion.
I am a mom of 3, and my husband, my 3 sons, and I are all world and nationally ranked competitive shooters.
I'm 17 years old, and I'm a proud NRA member.
I support the Second Amendment.
And I'm a proud NRA life member.
And I'm an endowment NRA member.
And a proud American.
Every day, women like me are using firearms for shooting sports, for personal protection, and while we're doing it, we're conserving or enhancing wild places all across America.
When I started competing in 1989, my first competition, it was myself and one other woman. Now the firearms community is flooded with strong women.
I came to USA in 2013, and I never see any gun when I was in China. So when I first came here, I saw my husband have a gun, and it scared me.
Women want to learn to be safe. They need to be their own self-protectors, and they're taking steps to go ahead and make that happen.
Until one day, my husband, he's not at home. Someone came to my house, and I feel scared. But my husband had been trained me with a firearm. So I want to grab my gun, and I feel safe, and I feel empowered and protected.
And as a service member, it's extremely important to me that my friends, family, and community are properly trained to defend themselves when I'm not there. Throughout history, women have fought for all kinds of rights, and we're not going to stop now. Although we're very diverse, we have a common goal, and that's that we're going to fight for our right to keep and bear arms. I've been called a hick, a tomboy, and many other nasty names for being a young supporter of the Second Amendment. That doesn't bother me, because in the end, the Second Amendment is the great equalizer.
It's women activists that are fighting tooth and nail to defend our families, to defend the country, and to keep the Second Amendment. 我用枪保卫我的家园. I use gun protect my home.
Gun rights are women's rights. We're not going to let anybody take our ability to defend ourselves against rape and domestic violence. We are here to defend and maintain our rights. Women 2020, you're going to hear from us. No one's going to take action or demand action against my gun rights.
And if you want our guns, you're going to have to come through us first.
So the Hebrew Scriptures trace the liberation of God's people from slavery. And in Exodus, we see the people of God emerge from bondage. Their liberty is assured only as they obey God's leading and relate to Him and one another in the ways that He prescribes, just like us today. The law given at the Mount Sinai was intended to liberate God's people, to protect them and provide for their future. So, for the Lord your God defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow and loves the alien, giving him food and clothing. And you are to love those who are aliens, for you yourselves were aliens in Egypt. Fear the Lord your God and serve him. Now, the year of Jubilee, the 50 years that we have talked about where slaves were freed, and debts were canceled, and ancestral property was returned, the intention was that whatever the circumstance in the inverting years, broad equality among God's people was maintained. God warns this. He tells us, listen close, do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God. Later in Isaiah predicted that God would send the Messiah to inaugurate a spiritual year of Jubilee, which did happen. And it was these words that Jesus begins his first recorded message delivered in the synagogue of Nazareth. Jesus came to proclaim the good news of liberation, freedom, recovery, release, the season of God's favor, especially to the poor, to the prisoners, to the blind, and to those who were oppressed. Biblical justice is relational and liberating. So, with that being stated, friends, there is a judgment coming of liberation. It may not come in the form that we're expecting it. And as of yesterday, buddy, I tell you what, we were all kind of rocked on that one. So, apparently we're having a little bit of phone issue tonight, and I do apologize for that. But we're going to bring Brother Chuck on the line and see maybe if our problem has been corrected. Brother Chuck, welcome to the front porch, brother.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Going pretty good. Has the phone system straightened up for you, man?
You know, I kind of got out of my bunker and went to a higher area, so I'm hoping that we got a better signal up here.
All right. Well,
welcome. Sound a little better?
Yeah, you sound fine. And I have figured out how to work the volume on this, so we should be okay. Yeah, you're not pegging my meters like you were the other day. That was rough.
I know that can get on your nerves.
So what's your take on all this that you're seeing this week, Chuck?
Oh, my goodness. There's just so much going on, man. I just, it's kind of, there's just so much conflicting information out there that you really have to I think that's the hardest part for people is knowing what's really going on and like what's a good news source, because we have good news sources, but it's really weird how sometimes they can give such conflicting, views about what's happening. So, it's pretty incredible, man, with what's going on with Barr, and I keep getting stuff like, it's going good. He's going after people when you give him a chance. And then like kind of what you're saying, just kind of hitting at that, is he compromised? Is he part of the deep state? Like where his commitment? I almost, I've been thinking about going to the NRB this month, another week and a half. Cause I saw that he was going to be there. I thought about maybe seeing if I could go up and talk to him and just say, hey, like introduce myself and say, hey, man, I just want to know, I don't know exactly how I'd say it, but I'd just say, are you a man of integrity? And just listen to what he says. Like if he answers it and how he answers it, just because I'd like to ask him and just kind of see what he says.
So where is he going to be? Where is he going to be here in Nashville?
He's going to be it's a Gaylord Opryland, the NRB. I don't know what day. Like I have to go on there and pull up the itinerary to see, which room he's going to be in and stuff. But it has him on there. It says Barr. I was like, wow, and he's got his picture on there. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, according to the picture I saw, and it says Barr that he's going to be there. So I'm assuming he's going to be.
All right, well, good deal. We'll have to keep abreast of that. And if you go, man, let us know how it turns out. That would be awesome. All right.
I'll see if I can get a picture with him.
There you go. There you go. Well, listen, Barr, he's going to turn a special prosecutor loose on all that's going on with General Flynn and Roger Stone in all of their cases. Let's listen to what he said.
take me through what's being reported right now about what looks like another sort of special counsel-like examination into the investigators who investigated a Trump ally?
Yeah, so what sources have told us is that Barr asked the U.S. attorney in St. Louis to lead an inquiry into the Flynn case, specifically his FBI interview, which is at the center of really everything having to do with Flynn. And our understanding is that it happened very recently, and one source told us it was very sensitive, so it was not necessarily something that they wanted to have out in the open, like we've seen with these other sorts of inquiries that Barr has ordered up. The concern that people I talked to had about this is that it could be one of two things. One is, if you look at who was involved in the Flynn's FBI interview, it was January 24th, 2017. It was Andrew McCabe. It was James Comey. It was Peter Strzok. And those are all the greatest hits that the president likes to harp on and has criticized, and who has said, as you noted, they should face some sort of criminal penalties, and they haven't yet. And so this could be a sort of backdoor way to try to get them some more. That was one concern that a couple of people I talked to raised. And the other is that if they can stir the pot and muddy the waters and make it look like maybe something wasn't quite right, some I wasn't dotted here or a T crossed there, that makes a presidential pardon for Flynn something that's far more defensible at a time when Barr's under a lot of pressure.
So it appears that the deep states, they're going for broke here, and it may have to rely on a pardon of some sort. Pretty interesting stuff. All right. Chuck, did you hear about Obama's movie that he's making?
I think I heard something about it a long time ago. I haven't seen it or heard anything recently about it.
Well, it's going to be on Netflix, and I have canceled my Netflix, so I will be unable to see it. I'll just have to see what everybody else says about it. I cancel it because they put that one show up there about the gay Jesus from Brazil. So, but
yeah, I don't have Netflix either, so I'll have to do the same thing.
But Obama won an Oscar for this movie at the Oscars. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
All right,
I didn't watch the Oscars, so
I didn't either. But I'm going to share this because we're going to talk about it. Here we go.
It's harder and harder these days, and we believe that things will get better when workers of the world unite.
That was on one of my old Soviet propaganda posters I got when I was a student over there in the 80s.
For a moment, I thought that was Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin, but I digress. The thing that's really distressing
they were beautiful.
Is this American Factory movie that the Obamas produced. It's about a Chinese billionaire who buys a shuttered factory and reopens it, and that's something to be looked up to and excited about. So they gave an award to that. At the same time, you have an economy and a president that's focused on driving the Chinese out of American industry and letting America drive its own economy. It's an amazing moment that we saw.
All right, so Obama's movie, Chuck, has been praising China while basically putting down the United States. And
he's good. He was good at that.
Well, he is. But how
Hal
Laura Ingraham, brought in the communist aspect of this. The Nazism that's involved, the statements that they're speaking. I mean, it's all full blown spiritual right now, man. The devil is making his move.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it's interesting because he's making his move. But it's because so many people just don't believe in the Bible anymore and don't believe in spiritual things. It's all a political thing. So it's even harder to see what he's doing. It's hard to, when you talk to people about this stuff, they just look at it because it's all like, oh, you must be right wing, you must be Republican. So it's so hard to talk to people because the devil is just so got a hold of what's going on, and it just becomes a big argument now. It's really incredible.
Well, it does. And speaking about movies, we know there's a movie out there called The Hunt, okay? And what it is, it's a movie where they go after Trump supporters and kill them. And when this was first going to be put out there, there's a lot of people that was disagreeing about this, so they decided not to put the movie out. Well, this week, Universal Pictures plans now to release the movie about hunting deplorables after all. Universal Pictures announced this week that it has decided to release The Hunt, a movie about liberal elites hunting deplorables. After all, despite plans last fall to scrap the movie altogether, the most talked about movie of the year is on Nobody's Seen Yet. The most talked about movie of the year is one nobody has seen yet. The Hunt movies opens in theaters Friday the 13th of March. How convenient. Friday the 13th on Satan's Day, a movie about going out and killing Trump supporters in March.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. I remember watching that video where I think I don't know if it was Don Lemon or it was a couple of different guys, and they were kind of mocking Trump supporters, saying, "Oh yeah, they probably can't even find Ukraine on a map," and and they were laughing, and they started going into their accent, about like a pretty poor Southern accent, and they were laughing and laughing and laughing, like wow. And it's amazing how God allows little things like that to happen to just show you exactly what they think about Trump supporters, and really just about Southerners, and just being conservative. Even get the Trump part out, just the rest of us that aren't part of their club. Pretty incredible.
Right. Well, I think it's just a sign that this battle is upon us. It's here.
Yeah.
And whatever we decide to do is going to be what the outcome of what our lives are going to be. Did you hear about Joe Biden up in New York when he landed in New York?
Which part?
Well, it's when they were heckling him when he arrived in New York. Check this out, man. This is absolutely awesome. Here we go. Whoop.
Drop out, Joe. Drop out, Joe. Skip Nevada. Skip South Carolina. Just go home early. Drop out, Joe. 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 Drop out, Joe.
So they're out there, man. It's awesome. Okay, so
I can understand why they do that. Look at how he treats the people that show up at his rallies and they disagree with him. Remember, he called that woman like a dog face something or a horse face. I was like, whoa! It's like, dang, this guy's pretty nasty, man.
Oh yeah, it would. But now we understand why they're wanting to put this movie out now. Because what it's going to do is you got all of these little liberals out here that are just waiting to be triggered, waiting for the green light, the go ahead, okay? And now that everywhere these people go, hey, Q's told us there's coming a time when they won't be able to walk down the streets. And that time has come. I mean, look at Schiff and Pelosi and all of them when they went back over Christmas after the impeachment. I mean, they were just getting a barrage of hatred, from the American people. And now, these candidates, they're getting heckled when they. So that scenario of them not being able to walk down the streets is happening. And so putting this movie out in March, Friday the 13th, you're going to have some crazed, doped up liberal that's going to say, hey, man, we ought to go do that. And then, boom, here we go. And then the battle is on. It's just fascinating how the devil is working in all of it. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's good that you're bringing it back to the spiritual battle, because really it's so easy to get all worked up and irritated about what these people are doing, all the injustices they're doing, and just how they're lying and being hypocrites and trying to virtue signal, trying to be we're the ones that are the virtuous ones, and you guys are the Nazis. You guys are doing all the garbage that they do. It's so important to get back to the fact that the devil's behind it, in speaking the truth about what's happening, because really we have to have that bigger picture in mind, that it's about the battle for spiritual truth, because the devil's pulled it so much into the political realm that now people can just attack each other for being conservative or liberal. It's really amazing how he's been able to just kind of, really confuse the whole issue of truth, and lies, and just by calling it just like a political thing now. So now you just get in arguments with people instead of, getting across to them the spiritual side.
Right. Well, we're going to cover some tweets that have been surfacing this week. I have been wanting to share a few. But before we get there, Q's always said, why is the media not asking about us? Why are they refusing to say anything or question anything? And all they've been doing, though, when they bring up Q, is trying to discredit Q. The liberal media has been saying it's a conspiracy theory, it's a military psyop, and all that, right? Well, this week, they did, Chuck. They asked Trump about Anonymous and Q and all that, and it's a quick clip. I'll play it 2 or 3 times, but listen to his response. Pretty interesting.
Do you know who Anonymous is? I don't want to say, but you'd be surprised.
Let's play it one more time.
Do you know who Anonymous is? I don't want to say, but you'd be surprised.
Do you know who Anonymous is? Well, I don't want to say, but you'd be surprised. So, hey, is that lending credibility to Q being legit?
I think you could make a case for that.
Yeah, very, very easily you could. So a lot has been coming out, Chuck, Twitter-wise, and Jordan Sather told us that there's going to be some big things coming that's going to hit the fan the next 4 to 6 weeks. We need to buckle up, grab the popcorn, and prepare to see the deep state exposed more than ever before. Now, I believe this because this is the way that, that God operates. And opening the program with the way that we did, with Micah and all of that, Tribunal Watch tweeted that premeditated fraud, evidence is proven, it's a slam dunk case, but Q's a LARP and nothing's happening. These clowns are about to be avanettied. Yeah. And so, as we shared, the Sean Hannity clip, there's bigger things coming down the pike. And we have got to be prepared and ready for this. And Joe M. tweeted that serial presidential loser and human trafficking mob boss Hillary Clinton could be about to do a Biden and enter the race to claim political interference when Durham's findings blow open her email espionage and trading of national security secrets to China. Which she will hide behind that because now I'm running for president or vice president and you cannot come after me for that.
And that's why you're making the stuff up, because I'm running for president.
Exactly.
Now it's starting to come clear.
Yeah. And so one tweeted that now it's kind of evident why Bloomberg is now running for president, because he can be the shoe-in. With the money that he's got, he can... Go ahead.
That's a good point. I mean, because I kind of look at it and I hear people talking about Bloomberg and how a lot of people just really don't like the guy. They're like, but that with politics, it's not necessarily, because that there's a group of people out there, a lot of people that will identify with some particular candidate, no matter how horrible they are.
Right.
They might like him. So the more people you have running, you get people involved, and wanting to vote for these people. And then when they drop out, that person just kind of passes their endorsement to the next person, hoping to kind of, consolidate all the Democratic support for that particular candidate by bringing all these different type of candidates in. So I could see from that perspective even doing that. But I think that's a good point, because you look at all the people that are running right now, with the exception of Bloomberg, and like I said, not very many people like him, but they're so weak. Like, Bloomberg would probably be one of the strongest candidates, as far as just at least compared to the other guys, because they're all pretty pathetic. So I could see Bloomberg, having that money, because he doesn't have to keep raising the money, so he can just keep running and that would make sense that if he did that and then Hillary came in, you know, I could really see that. From what I know, I think that would be a pretty plausible possibility.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's all there. But friends, we've got signs that are happening all around us, along with all this other stuff that's going on. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it baffled locals and it shocked as the sea in Kazakhstan mysteriously turned blood red. I don't know if you heard about that or not, but images were captured on the Caspian River by the city of Akatu in southeastern Kazakhstan with spots of scarlet red visible in the white snow. The pictures in the video are just phenomenal. The incredible photos show a stretch of coast turning dark red, resembling huge blood stains. And the image was captured on the Caspian Riviera by the city of Akatu, like I was saying. And spots of scarlet can be spotted all up and down the coast. And, man, this is just fascinating. It's crazy. And it says that if the water was polluted, it would have an additional glittery layer, according to reports. So despite the official statement, Internet users are disturbed by the sea's bizarre appearance. One said, I bet nature is telling us something like some sort of sign to me. Yeah, of course it's a sign. Wow. Another added, even though they can say what they want, the amount of algae there shows that something is wrong with the sea. It's just too much of it. So they're trying to blame it on an algae bloom and all that. But while that's going on, Chuck, this locust swarm that we have been seeing in Africa is growing all over the place. And it says Africa locust invasion is spreading, and it may become the most devastating plague in living history, the UN warns. The outbreak of billions of locusts continue to swarm parts of East Africa and devour its vital farmland. The United Nations warned Monday that the region, already suffering from extreme hunger, simply cannot afford this major shock. And so the African locust plague is the worst infestation in decades. Even cows are wondering what's happening.
Wow.
And I bet the fishing won't be any good either, because there's so much locust in the waters that the fish are probably full and they wouldn't want to bite a hook, you know.
Right.
And then
that's funny.
Go ahead.
I think it's interesting because, you know, people talk about they're talking about how it's just the algae in the water, but the thing is God uses everyday happenings also still to get stuff across. Stuff doesn't have to be supernatural for us to get our attention. He works through the natural too, and I think a lot of people kind of, miss that.
Right. Well, and you make a valid point there. Well, not only are the locusts and the water still turning blood red, Brother Dabu has been sharing the news of what happened. We had a meteor impact. Check us out.
Here within the past 2 days or 48 hours or so, a giant meteorite hits Earth, leaving a huge 20-foot crater in this factory compound. This was in the wee hours of Tuesday morning, and this was in an industrial area inside of India. It lit the night sky up. It turned it into day. The different video clips that caught this coming through shows just that. It literally turning into day and then gone. Then people felt shaking like an earthquake. It was slight. There were no injuries. There was no deaths or anything reported in connection with this. But this was all reported around 5 a.m. on the 12th, here just a couple days ago, slamming into India. So this is just one of those events that show proof, as we've seen in the past with some others, that these rocks will come down and strike the earth. This is why I put out fireball alerts all the time. Because when you have bigger objects coming through our vicinity, it can hit any old rock, any piece of trash, anything, and send it our way. This one did not break up in the atmosphere completely, and it hit the earth, leaving a 20-foot deep crater. So I'm sure that that's an interesting find for everyone there, and the composition of the metal of the meteorite, that's always interesting as well. You never know what it's going to be. And just goes to show they can make impact. I'll leave links I'll continue to update on this, and I can't stress enough. Follow me on D-Live over here. This is where we are talking about everything that they want to censor.
So the meteors are now coming in, Chuck, and actually leaving craters behind. So
that's pretty incredible. It makes me think of that one that was in Russia or Siberia, that one that lit up the sky not too long ago. I think it was a few months back.
Well, but that's the whole point here. As we witness evil rising, then the signs of God still being in control, water turning to blood, locust plague, and now meteors in the same week. And so God is still on the throne. He is still on the throne. Now,
that's right.
Jesse Smollett's back in the news. You know, the corrupt in Chicago that forgave Jesse Smollett for lying about all these attacks that came against him, the rope around his neck and all that. Well, now the feds have stepped in and have reviewed the case, and now there are indictments against Jesse Smollett. Check this out.
For joining us, it all has to do with Jussie Smollett. Remember him? Well, he has been indicted today by a special prosecutor in Chicago. The former Empire actor was indicted today in Chicago by Special Prosecutor Dan Webb, stemming from the alleged racist and anti-gay attack on him that occurred in January of 2019. A source confirms to our sister station, Fox 32 News in Chicago. Smollett told Chicago police last year that two men physically attacked him and yelled racial and homophobic slurs. Prosecutors insist Smollett faked the racist anti-gay attack on himself in the hopes that the attention would advance his acting career. But with little explanation, authorities last year abruptly dropped all charges against Smollett, abandoning the criminal case only 5 weeks after the allegations were filed. In return, prosecutors said that the actor agreed to let the city keep his $10,000 in bail. The dismissal drew a swift backlash from the mayor and police chief and raised questions about why Smollett was not forced to admit that prosecutors had said that they could prove in court that the entire episode was a publicity stunt.
So old Jesse Smollett's back on the chopping block here, Chuck. And
that's pretty crazy.
Joe M. had tweeted that now we're going to find out Kamala Harris and Cory Booker were all part of this because they, remember at the time this all began, they were trying to push through legislation, the bill against lynching, because they knew what was coming, and they wanted to put a bill out there where they wouldn't be, I guess, hung for treason. I don't know, but all this is, so everything behind the scenes now is starting to unfold and come out in front of our eyes. But getting back to these weather patterns, you know, Sister Jamie over there in England has been sending me like week after week all these photographs of the bay, the beach line that she lives near. And
I got a few of those too. They're really beautiful.
Yeah, man. I mean, just waves of 50 feet waves, 100-foot waves. Or 50 foot anyway, coming in every single week. And she's listening tonight, hopefully still, but left me a message right at showtime that now they've got a storm called Dennis that's moving in. And she don't know if she'll be able to stay online, if it'll kick her off or whatnot. But the seas and the waves are roaring. Not over here. As of, we had all these flooding rains this week, Chuck. I mean, Alabama, Tennessee just got flooded. And
it was bad.
Had tornadoes. And so, everything is increasing at the same time we're seeing evil raise its ugly head. So let me share this with you. As we're talking about water, that the waters of justice and righteousness are dangerous to those of us who have promised to follow Christ and to live in concert with his people. Are we courageous enough to practice biblical justice? And justice is relational, liberating, and restorative. And if the world is to know Jesus, through us, we must risk entering into dangerous waters of injustice and bring God's justice and righteousness. So, have we risen to that challenge yet? You know, I know the listeners on this show have, because I've got, people are doing their part, either telling others about what's going on or sharing stuff with me so I can tell it. But I need to ask for special prayers. We have had a mind-boggling morning this morning. I just found out, first of all, that a dear friend of ours, Sister Teresa Burns, is in the hospital. She had a hip replacement, and then it's kind of gone south. Now she's got fluid around her heart and all that, so special prayers for Sister Teresa. She is a listener to the program. And then also this morning, I don't think you know him, Chuck, but he's a good friend that I have grown up with ever since I was a kid. He's a year younger than I am. His name is Rod Sweeney, and we need to be in prayer for his family. He died this morning.
Oh, wow.
And it was the craziest thing. And so I got a hold of a good friend of mine to find out the details, and he had the flu all week. And he wasn't getting any better. He was just trying to treat it on his own, and his girlfriend was over there helping him through it. And she was waking him up every couple of hours, giving him medication, checking on him. And I guess this morning about 1 o'clock, she went in there and gave him some medicine, and he seemed to be doing okay, and went back to bed. She went back in there at 3, and he was dead. So,
wow.
Yeah, man. I mean, that was devastating news to wake up to. He was the bass player in the Tennessee Courage band. Actually, they've been a band ever since we were a kid, and I've gone and sat in with them, played guitar, played harmonica with them, and grew up playing with Rod. Excellent bass player. I mean, never would miss a note. You want to talk about keeping the heartbeat of any song going, he could do it, So, wow. Yeah, man, prayers for that family. That was crazy. And which leads me into this. What about this coronavirus, Chuck? What's your opinion on it?
I really think, a lot of my sources are saying that it's really two different things. It's a lot more widespread than the media is leading us to believe that it is, simply because of the incubation period and how people can detect whether you have it or not. And I've been hearing different things from 21-day incubation period to 10-day. I kind of heard a little bit about that. I don't know which one's really, correct, but the point is, it takes quite a bit longer for them to detect than they're actually holding the people in quarantine for. And before they even found out really about it, there's already been, people going to and fro since before they even diagnosed it that, could have been carrying it, have it. Even people that are not sick anymore that got over it still carry it for a long time and can spread it. So, and I also heard one guy, I think I might have sent you the video, I don't remember if I did or not, but he was saying basically that even if it doesn't really go crazy now, like over this year, that by next year or even by summertime and then into next year, and I even just heard something, a CDC official kind of confirmed that even if it doesn't get really intense this time around, I don't know if it's mutates or what it does, it's going to hit with a vengeance even harder the second time around. So, I've been watching and reading a lot of stuff about it, so I'm hearing some pretty crazy stuff about it.
Well, my opinion is, I haven't covered it much, and my listeners have been emailing me wanting to know why I'm not. And I'll have to be honest. Anything that comes out of China, I don't care what it is. I mean, they're 100% solid communism, okay? So nothing leaves China unless China wants it to leave. So, all of these supposed cell phone videos that have been coming out, that people have been sneaking out. I mean, if they sneak out these videos and are caught, that's a death penalty. That's execution for them. So question is, are they going to that extent to let people really know what's going on? But yet when the videos, some of them came out, when they first started coming out, everybody was wearing short sleeve shirts in the middle of winter. It was 19 degrees in Beijing, and everybody's running around in short sleeve shirts, greenery in the background. And then those videos disappeared, and now people with coats and all that. Okay. We know for a fact China's history, where anyone that rises up against the Chinese government, they kill them. They slaughter their own people. And we know that this supposed coronavirus has emptied the streets in Hong Kong now. There are no protesters. Now, I sent you that picture clip of them supposedly burning bodies over in China. Do you remember getting that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay, so apparently this is the real deal. At least China is wanting us to believe this. Now, I'm not saying if it is or if it ain't, but my point is, for it to be as bad and deadly as they are claiming that it is, and as much as it's supposedly spreading, I know America is putting up around airports now military bases to handle those with the coronavirus. But there's really not a serious effort, at least here in America, to stop the influx of Chinese coming in, to stop the Chinese goods coming in. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, look at how many goods come in from China. So that they were saying that would kind of, put a huge dent in our, already kind of fragile economy if we did that. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
Okay, so is it really a big a threat as they're trying to make it out to be? And is this being used for some sort of framework for maybe later mandatory vaccinations down the pike, or a martial law type of setting here?
Yeah.
For, we don't really know anything right now because we're not being told anything.
Right.
All we're getting is...
I did read an article. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
As I did read an article that Trump has commissioned, some scientists to look into it and investigate it as a bioweapon. So I have read a couple articles that talked about that, at least, that I did hear that. So,
well, right now, I don't want to jump on this bandwagon that a lot of these channels are doing, that this is the end all be all, and this is the pandemic that's going to wipe out. I'm not going to get on that bandwagon right now. And we do know that we're told in the last days that disease and pestilence will be rampant. So it is safe to say that, okay, we could claim this as a disease, but something so simple as Purell hand sanitizer could kill this virus. And the feds coming to Purell wanting them to pull that statement down, and they said they're not going to do it because it's been proven that it does. They're going to leave it up. Kind of makes you wonder what is really going on. So, I hate to be, I hate to be like this, but I'm just not buying it right now. I'm going to have to see more,
what's interesting is because with the time we live in, knowledge is increasing. But I think that it's not just like real knowledge. I think it's like lying knowledge too. You have all these different websites purposely putting stuff out there that's not true to mislead you, or to, if you quote it and find out it's, because you thought it was good, and then you find out it's not, and then just totally discredits you. So it's really, really hard. Like for a lot of people, you talk to them. I've had people, I've gotten back and forth with some people about Natural News. Natural News is a really good site I like to go to, and they're saying, this is a bogus news site. You're spreading a bunch of garbage. Look, fact check. They fact checked it. Blah blah. The fact checkers are so honest, right? So it's really hard, because even when you have information and you share it with people, it's like they just don't want to believe it. Or, like I said, on the other hand, you have all these different sites that are really bogus sites, that it really seems like it's something legit. So it's so hard for people to find the truth now. It's like it's just lost in a barrage of just a bunch of information. So it really, if you really want to know it's true, kind of like, like how you're doing, you're studying, looking, checking this out, scrutinizing. That's why it's never wrong, like what you're doing, talking about the virus. There's nothing wrong with looking at it like that, because I really do think that we have to really look, with a lot of scrutiny at what's coming out, just because we know all the lies that are going on. So I think you're right to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just being cautious right now, friends. I mean, we do have to be mindful of this. I'm just not ready to jump on the bandwagon, and I wanted to save this thread till later in the program. Chuck, you heard how we opened up the program. We showed you the courthouse scene of the parallels between Israel and today. Well, this is all true. And although McCabe and Comey and all of them seem to be walking free right now, there's an important thread that I want to share. And thank you, Sister Cheryl. I already had this one on the docket, but I appreciate you, girl, for what you do. And Q this week, he posted justice on one of his Q posts. And let's go over a bunch of things that have happened that many of you may not be aware of. Chinese telecommunications conglomerate Huawei and the subsidiaries charged in racketeering conspiracy and conspiracy to steal trade secrets. We shared the Jesse Smollett clip where he was indicted on 6 charges for his hoax and hate crimes. The Justice Department launches legal assault to roll back sanctuary cities, which we have covered that. Barr is going to start going after the sanctuary city. Barr announced that Giuliani had turned over to them investigative information about Ukraine corruption with former administrations. Now, I want to cover this a little bit because Barr did say we need to take everything that comes out of Ukraine with a grain of salt, including that which Rudy Giuliani has. And many people were like, well, there you go. Now Barr's not going to take that as credible. He's still covering for the deep state by somewhat claiming that Giuliani's information is bogus, right? I don't believe that's the case, because if you've ever heard Giuliani's podcasts on the intel that he's got, it's the real deal. All right.
Yeah.
Number 3, Trump goes on a Twitter spree highlighting that nothing ever happened to the crimes Tony Podesta did. Trump torches corrupt judge Bremen Jackson about injustice, about Manafort, but game HRC a pass. Michael Avenatti, he was found guilty on all charges. So, now, what's that show? Everybody that comes after Trump falls, right? Another Cyrus analogy here.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And we talked about earlier how Roger Stone's sentencing was evaluated by Barr as being outrageous. 9 years for lying to Congress. Rape is only 3 years, and the 4 corrupt Mueller investigators all resigned. Number 5, I'm here to announce the indictment of Chinese military hackers for breaking into the computer system of the credit reporting agency Equifax and for stealing the sensitive personal information on nearly half of all American citizens. This was from AG Barr. And Trump fired Alexander Vindman. And Trump White House fires Gordon Sondland. And Trump's NSC, National Security Council, removes 70 former Obama holdovers, with maybe even more coming. And Graham sent a letter to Attorney General Barr on Friday asking that he make 17 officials, many of whom are identified only by title, available for interviews. And Durham is scrutinizing John Brennan's handling of the Russia interference in 2016. Barr installs outside prosecutor to review the case against General Flynn. We covered that. Amid turmoil in Roger Stone's case and refusal to charge Andrew McCabe, the AG has sent outside prosecutors to review politically sensitive cases. And this is only Friday afternoon, too. As I said earlier, for those crying about McCabe getting off for lying, you really don't understand the big picture. If you start really paying attention, then you won't be the kid on the left. You'll be the kid on the right. And it's a picture of one kid crying, one kid laughing. So this is what I was getting at, Chuck, is that we have seen that justice in the eyes of Jesus is the first relational, second is liberating, and third is restorative.
Yeah.
And the biblical vision of justice calls Christian citizens to question and challenge which underline our political, economic, and social setting, hence the Micah challenge. This is what we are to do. We are to call it out. We are to expose, because we're in battle here. And so I'll let you be the judge in your situation. Are you the mighty wind, or are you to be the strong oak? Are you the mighty locomotive, or are you called to be the strength of the bridge? You know, Chuck, there may be some of us that, I may be one, you may be the other. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point, because, God, I remember when I used to go street witnessing, there was people that would just go right up and say, hey, man, you're a sinner. You need Jesus. To go up to some people and say that, and those people would respond. And that's not my tact. That's just not the way I do it. I would kind of talk to somebody and kind of, but, there's a time and a place to do that, because some people need to hear that, and other people need to have kind of like you just kind of develop a conversation with them, and it just kind of morphs into that. So I would agree with that.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And again, that the waters of justice and righteousness are dangerous to those of us who have promised to follow Jesus Christ and to live in concert with his people. So are we courageous enough, Chuck, to practice biblical justice? That's the question.
Well, I think too, I really feel like if your confidence is in God, and that God will judge, all the things that are done, if you really believe that, it really keeps you from losing heart and giving up and becoming frustrated. I mean, you can get initially frustrated because you see them here and now getting away with stuff, or seeming to get away with stuff. But if you really remember that in the end, nobody gets away with anything.
Right.
You really don't, because God keeps track of the good stuff we do and the bad stuff we do, and He's going to, judge us for that.
Right.
We have to give an account for what we knew of Jesus in sharing with people or not sharing with people, and for people that don't know God, there's a different judgment for them. The white seat judgment, the Bema seat judgment. You got the different judgments. One for the non-believer and one for the believers. So we have those accountability. We're going to have to give an account. So if you really believe that, when you see what's happening here on the earth, and even if somebody does get away with it here initially, they're not getting away with it there. So that's really the thing that we should be concerned about. I mean, it is important to try to pray about that they're brought to justice here, because it's important for people to know that and to see the truth. But really, ultimately, if we really trust in God, we know that people really don't get away with it.
Amen. Well, Lindsey Graham is also on the hunt. Listen to the latest that he's doing, Chuck.
I want to get to the bottom of all of this to make sure this never happens again. Senate Intel will deal with the whistleblower. Foreign Relations Committee will deal with Joe Biden's conflict of interest. The Judiciary Committee will deal with all things FISA. And let me tell Republicans out there, you should expect us to do this. If we don't do it, we're letting you down. And I guarantee you, if it were if the shoe were on the other foot, Democrats would be eating us alive if Republicans had done any of these things.
I can tell you for sure you will be letting down my viewers. They want accountability. For 3 years, this country has been in hysterics over collusion that never existed, and now this Ukraine situation. We'll be watching, Senator.
They're not going to let it happen. They're not going to let them get away with it, Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a gentleman...
There's a lot more people than we realize that are really concerned about this. That's really encouraging.
Yeah. See, it's not just Barr, man. I mean, that's why I'm saying I don't think Barr is batting for the deep state, because if he does, man, he's going to have a lot of people to answer to. And but there's a gentleman by the name of Alan Storkey, and he offers this challenge to us tonight, that our relation to God's justice is unavoidable. And our lives it's going to shape our lives and our history. And moreover, both in the Scriptures and in 2,000 years of Christian history, we have the greatest formative tradition of justice in world history. And when we walk out of the ghetto, we already know the city, have a good map, and have access to its ruler. Surely it's time to do. It's time to do. And that's all there is to it, friends. Micah and the judgment that came against the evil rulers of Israel. Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, because God's still the same today as he was yesterday. So it's like if he was just in the Bible, if he really believed the Bible is truly the truth and not just the collection of stories, you believe that if God judged back then, he's still the same God that he was back then now.
That's right.
So just because people don't believe in him and don't acknowledge him, he has not lost his power and ability to be able to do what he's going to do. And that's the thing is, just because you don't have the knowledge of God like they did back then, like where people were more aware of it, because there's always been political stuff around, but now it just seems like it's all about politics. Like that's almost all anybody talks about outside of football. It's politics. They don't really hardly talk about the Bible anymore. They really don't. And so it's just encouraging to me to know that God is still on his throne and he's still doing what he's always done, able to give justice and mercy. So,
right. Well, sounds good, Chuck. Well, Chuck, we come to the end of the rope. I'm going to have to dive off here a little earlier tonight.
All right, man.
But I've got some good things on the horizon for next week. A lot of people have been sending me things, and I need to go through here. Let's see. Yep, Sister Jamie says that she's here. She's listening, a bit breezy, but she's there.
We had a nice day today compared to what it has been here lately.
Yeah.
It's been the last couple of days. It's been really cold.
Yeah. And sorry I was a little late checking the email, but I had a bunch of articles up here. Finally got to the email. So, yes, she is still on board listening to us tonight from over in England. Hello there.
That's very cool.
Over in England. Hey, as a matter of fact, we talked to an old boy in Australia this week on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure did, over in Sydney, Australia, and he told us that the fires are out. They've had rain that's moved in and put all the fires out, and he said now we're worried about landslides.
Flooding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because I just saw, I think it's an article you sent to me about all those floods. I'm like, wow. Now in California, when they had those fires, that was a big concern, is that there's not that vegetation to hold back the mudslides.
Right. Exactly. All right, Chuck, why don't you lead us in a closing prayer, man, and then the message will be theirs.
All right, man. Dear Lord, I just thank you, as always, for the awesome privilege, Lord, of being able to talk about truth, God, especially to just be used by you, Lord, to just reclaim that ground, Lord God, that's been stolen in many ways by the enemy, Lord. Renaming stuff and calling it political and left wing, right wing, and just putting all these titles on it. It's making it so confusing to know what the truth is. Lord, I just pray you'd help us, God, to remember that you're still in control. And it's important for us to pray about all this stuff, just for our own hearts, but also for just for those who are going after these criminals, Lord. You give them courage and strength and help them to be willing to lay down their lives, Lord, in the pursuit of truth. Lord, I just pray you would just provide many opportunities to share about you with people and help us to be in the right place, that we would take advantage of those, and we would just be used by you, Lord, to share the gospel, and that people would get saved, and that we would all remember, Lord, this world is not our home. We're only passing through, and that we would have the right perspective, God, every day, Lord. It's so easy to get sucked up to the here and now and the stuff that's going on around us, coronavirus, all these different things that are going on in the world. Well, there's just so many things happening. It's just impossible to talk about everything. But we're just excited, Lord, that you're still in control. And you would just keep us to have that right perspective, Lord, and just use us for your purposes, Lord. That's why we're here. Just bless the rest of the evening, Lord. Thank you for the great weather today. And we just look forward to what you're going to do, Lord, just for the rest of the week, God, and just for the rest of the time we're here. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Good prayer.
Yeah.
Brother Pat asked a important question. He said, how do we know, with all of the flu-like symptoms that are out there, that they all belong to one particular virus? We don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Now, especially since the different effects it has on different people. Sometimes you get a fever, sometimes congestion, sometimes it's a collaboration of a couple of those, sometimes, it lasts a couple of days, sometimes for some people it's one day. It's kind of interesting because a lot of variables with your immunity, but that is a good point that it could be a variation of different types of viruses together. So,
yep, it could very well be. And we've got schools closed around here. At least Cheatham County was. I don't know about your neck of the woods, but they were closed for almost a week because of flu-like symptoms. And you've been hearing schools all over the place that are closed because of that. So how do we know? Just like Pat said.
Right. Yeah, it could be coronavirus. I laugh about it. I'm not as a serious matter, but we really don't know. Like, we really don't know how far a virus has gone and what it is. So, yeah, it's an interesting point.
Well, and we don't really know what their plans or their schemes are about this coronavirus. So, there's just a lot of variables right now that are unknown. Yep. I don't know, but hey, have you been able to get any work done?
Trust God.
That's right.
What's that?
Have you been able to get any work done with all this rain that we've been having?
Oh my goodness, it was pretty lean last week. I think I got maybe about 18 or 20 hours. This week I was able to get 30 hours. I went in the other day. I didn't want to because it was cold, but it was 18 degrees when I went in. So I'm going, oh man. I was thankful for the hours, but boy, man, I was just like, God, I'm not looking forward to today. But yeah, the Lord's been good. He always takes care of us. But it had been a bit lean the last several weeks because of the rain. Yeah, there are people that still pour even when it's pouring outside. So, some part of me, like I said, sometimes kind of like, oh man, but then part has been very thankful that I've had the work. So yeah, it hasn't been too bad.
Well, good. Because
I would say, how about you? But I know you drive no matter what. So.
Yeah. Hey, actually, I stayed south, man. It was 70, 80 degrees down where I was at this week. So
that's right.
I didn't have to get in any of the northern snow or any of that. Real quick before we close,
that's cool.
346 earthquakes, volcanic activity, Peru, 1 eruption, 2 unrest, Guatemala, 3 eruptions, Colombia, 1 warning, Ecuador, 2 eruptions, U.S., 1 unrest, Indonesia, 1 eruption, Japan, 1 eruption, 1 warning, Chile, 1 eruption. So the earth is shaking, friends. Wow. We've got things happening. Yep. So, yeah, heads up and be aware of that.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. So, well, Chuck, it's been good to have you, bro.
Cool. It's good to be here, bro. I look at the stuff that you're talking about, what's going on around the world, and it's exciting as a Christian because obviously our hearts go out to people that are adversely affected by all this stuff, but it's exciting to know that the Lord is getting closer to Him coming back. So it's great that we can have that kind of perspective as a Christian.
Amen. Well, friends, I need to take these words to heart that the Lord has shared with us. We need to be on board. And understand these things. So, Chuck, glad to have you tonight.
Yeah, good to be here, man. I got to live sober-minded, man. It's all about that.
All right, well, until next time, I am Old Smokehouse.
And I'm Chuck Bird.
And we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Smokehouse. To talk to Smokehouse, dial 712-770-3857. That number once again is 712-770-3857. 3857, then dial 252-380, followed by the pound sign. Call in to join the show.
SmokehouseStudios.net. God is among us. The door to the ark is slamming shut.